again is that when a declaration of heresy or a declaration of schism happens, it doesn't mean that it was only at the point that that declaration happens that it's been heresy, right? Oh, now it's heresy because it's been declared, or now it's schism because it's been declared. No, it's been a heresy for a long time. If it's gotten to the point of a declaration, it's been heresy for a while, or it's been schism for a while. This false idea that, let's see, how can I put this? That schism is only like restricted to the area of canon law or the juridical life of the church. Like it's just a political thing. And that completely neglects the fact that schism is actually a sin against charity, even before it's a canonical crime. The church's canon law is built around the moral law, around the moral and divine law, and flows from it. It's a practical application of it. And so that's why the schism is something that's so much more multi-layered, and the understanding of it is a lot more complex than just the juridic definition, right? Just the canonical definition of it. Because, I mean, other definitions that I have brought up, I brought them up in my debate as well as in my open letter to Father Golowski, was that it's also a separation from the whole, a separation from the common life of the church. Mm-hmm. It's a division. I mean, that's what schism means. It's a separation and a division. And this word is used by St. Paul when he says, "Let there be no schisms among you. Let there be no divisions among you." And those divisions were mainly around, they weren't even necessarily around a heresy. They were around persons, right? Some of them were saying they were of Apollo, or some of them were of Cephas, or some of them were of Paul, right? They were coming around personalities, and then they were saying, we're being the faithful Catholics, and you guys aren't legit Catholics. And that created disruption in the unity. You know, St. Paul says, no, we're all supposed to be one in Christ. And so schism is something that is the direct result of a transgression against charity, because charity brings together and sin pulls apart, sin separates. And so we have to remember that the refusal to act as part of the whole is part of this rich, multi-layered understanding of what it means to live as a Catholic in unity with the church. And because I don't think anybody can deny that the SSPX are not, and Sede Vacantis clergy, they're not one with the church. They're not acting in union with the church or part of the common life of the church. And that's de facto schism. All the other things aside.
Right. They do fit the juridical definition of schism. They can deny it all day long, but they do.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I was just at a funeral recently where it was celebrated by a diocesan priest in the 1962 missal. And there, half or more of the congregation I knew to be people who regularly attend the SSPX. And, everything, like you almost couldn't find any fault with anything that went on at that mass. And, we're all there together, and then it's time for communion. And I had to nudge the guy in front of me and tell him he needed to go up because he was waiting for half of the congregation to go. And I said, they're not going. And he was like, oh, okay. So we got up and we went to communion, and we walked by all these people. It's like, you profess to be Catholics. We profess to be Catholics. You claim, you'll deny all day long that you're not in schism, but you won't go to communion with us. Like, this is even a 1962 missal mass by a priest who to not be a heretic. Okay. Yes. It's not good enough for you. And then you're sitting there wearing veils as if you're acknowledging that the real presence is in that church. And yet it's not enough for you to make you go up and receive communion. And I'm like, you're refraining from communion with the members subject to the Roman Pontiff, which is, part B of that definition of schism. And I was just like, this is so sad. It's like, some of you are my friends. We can't go to communion together. What's Catholic about that? Like, you tell me, because it makes no sense.
Right. Yeah. And then that policy is actually, that is the official policy of the SSPX. The reason that they don't go to communion, even though, they're participating in a funeral or wedding, is because of the mixture. So if the priest goes back to get hosts that have been consecrated from the tabernacle. So even if it's a TLM mass, if he goes to get hosted or consecrated at a Novus Ordo mass, those are doubtful validity, because the SSPX, even though it claims to accept the validity of the new mass, it sees it as very doubtful. And that's another reason why it also discourages its members to attend or go to the fraternity masses as well, because fraternity priests will also go, if they happen to be saying a mass in a diocesan church, they will also go to get the ciborium with hosts that have been consecrated, possibly at a Novus Ordo mass. So, I mean, you can see, like you pointed out, these actions that show that there is a real division are a result of the official teachings and policies of the society itself, or of other traditionalist clergy, such as Sedevacantists and otherwise.
Right. Oh, yeah. Man. Yeah, that's it. It's really, and it all goes down to their interpretation of sacramental intention, right? Which you guys had covered a little bit in one of your videos with John Salza and Dom about Archbishop Lefebvre's teaching on what makes a valid sacrament or not. Although, so they're going off of his theology about what makes a valid sacrament. So therefore, it calls into question the validity of Novus Ordo consecrated Eucharist. But then they'll, even though Archbishop Lefebvre's own orders, according to his own interpretation, would be invalid because the bishop who consecrated him withheld the intention of ordaining him and admitted it publicly. Like, that's, I mean, so it's like, oh, wow. Like, you guys, you want him to be a priest and a bishop, legit, and all his successors to be real, but then everybody else is suspect. But it's a double standard. It's really
right. Yeah. That's what John Salza was pointing out, was that in the accusation that the Archbishop Lefebvre's orders were invalid, the SSPX proceeded to defend it according to Orthodox sacramental theology. But then when it comes to the other sacraments, such as the validity of certain baptisms, or of the Novus Ordo Missae, the new rite of Mass itself, then they apply a different criteria. Yeah, so there are many inconsistencies like that, as I'm sure you're familiar with. In my open letter, I kept stumbling across these problems in the society's position that were either contradictory or inconsistent. When you start scratching below the surface of the things that they teach, you realize that they are not actually adhering to traditional Catholic teaching. They've come up with a justification in order to justify their separation from Rome. They've come up with all of these sophisticated arguments, which are actually not in line with the Church's tradition.